It was about 6 or 7 months ago. I was sitting in my chair reading Memories, Dreams, Reflections, the autobiography of Carl Jung. And my mother, Ruby, who turns 93 this summer, she came walking past and she looked down and she said, "How long does it take you to read a book?" I looked up and I said, "Takes me about 40 years. She said, "You must be a slow reader." Well, I smiled back and I said, "Well, some books you just have to read over and over again." She happened to be looking down at a picture in the book, and it was a picture of Jung in his 80s. She said, "He kind of looks like my grandfather." I looked at the picture and said, "Do I look like him?" She said, "Kind of." And I started to think, well, maybe I could make a program of stories out of Memories, Dreams, Reflections. And so that's what I've been working on, trying to create a set of stories that bring to life Carl Jung in the spoken word. I remember at about the age of 8 or 9, my parents decided that the country village school was not good enough, and that I needed to be sent into the city. That meant I had to walk for an hour every day into the city and back out. Well, I can tell you, rain or shine, I would arrive oftentimes spattered with mud and smelling from my clothes when they would dry in the classroom. The other children would laugh at me, I know. And most of them came from wealthy families. They came in carriages to the school each day, I walking. And all of them, they spoke French, they spoke German. I spoke only my dialect of German. It took years for me to adjust to being in a different culture. It was during that time that I had a small confrontation, well, shall I say, with my teacher. You see, we were given an assignment one day to write a composition. Now, I thought of myself as a good writer, and I had good ideas. And so I expected that I would be honored for my writing. The teacher had this way of judging the work of his students. He would read first the one that was the best in his estimation, and then he would go down the order to the worst. So when I arrived that day with my composition, I expected to be the first. Oh, no. No, the teacher chose another boy. And I said to myself, he is a good student. He probably deserves to be first. Oh, but then he came to the second and the third and the fourth, and he did not come to mine. And I thought, why can this be? Am I the poorest one at writing in this class? The fifth and the sixth, and finally, after he had discussed everyone's composition, he came to mine. He looked at me in the eye. He said, "Now we have Carl Jung. This should have been the best composition, but Carl Jung has copied it." When I heard that, I jumped to my feet in anger. I said, "I did not copy it. I wrote that myself." The teacher looked at me. With a stern eye, he looked at the other students, and he looked back and said, "Not only do you copy, but you also tell lies." Well, I looked at the other students, and I could see them shaking their heads, saying, now we know Carl Jung. Well, at that moment, I was so angry I was ready to explode. But it was just at the moment I was ready to explode that something happened. It was as if a soundproof door was closed between me and that teacher and all of the students. It was as if I was separated and a cosmic wind came in and swept over me and changed me. In that instant, I said to myself, "Why, what would you expect? That teacher does not know you. These students do not know you. You are not like them. You are different." I separated myself, and their slings and arrows flew over my head and did not touch me. You see, that was the beginning of my understanding the two Carl Jungs. The one, Carl Jung number one, was that conscientious boy who came from the village, who could not speak proper French or proper German. He was the boy who had smelly clothes and mud-spattered boots. He was the boy who wanted to make his parents happy, to make his teacher happy, and to have the other students like him. That was Carl Jung number one. But Carl Jung number two, who showed up in class that day, that Carl Jung, he cared nothing for that teacher. He knew that in school they had nothing to teach him. That Carl Jung number two was a Carl Jung who learned from nature, who went into the woods, who loved his dream world, the time of night. That was the beginning of that understanding of person number one and number two, or as I've come to talk about number two, as I was born into a family where my father was pastor of the Swiss Reformed Church in the village where we lived. And not only was he a pastor, but his two brothers were pastors. And on my mother's side of the family, there were 6 more pastors in the church. So in our family, when people gathered, there was always talk of theology, talk of sin and forgiveness, of redemption and of grace, all of these words of the church. Oh, I cannot tell you how many sermons I heard as a boy. So it was part of my language as a child. And the story I want to tell you now, it happened one day. We were coming out of school, and the other children went on their way, and I started home, walking down the street, coming through the cathedral square. As I came to the cathedral square, it was a beautiful summer day. The clear blue sky overhead. The sun was shining down onto the cathedral roof, and the Basel Cathedral has a multicolored slate tiles, so that the light was reflecting off the different colored tiles, making a beautiful scene. And I remember as a child thinking, here it is, God's perfect creation. I imagined that God is sitting on a throne, and that the sun is reflecting off the golden throne onto the cathedral in Basel. And I imagined what a perfect, perfect sight. It was just at that point that I had an interruptus, where I couldn't think the rest of the story that was in my mind. It was something terrible, and I felt so upset that I immediately turned around and started down the street, walking home as fast as I could. The whole way home, I kept trying to think of anything else but that story. I didn't want to finish it. I knew that the thought that was coming to me was a terrible thought, that it would condemn my soul to eternal damnation. A powerful thought. Well, in any case, I got home that afternoon. My mother was there, and she could see I was disturbed. She said, "Carl, have you been fighting with those boys again?" Well, I did fight many times with the boys in my school. But in this case, no. I honestly said I had not been fighting, but I was disturbed, and I didn't go any further into it. That night, I went to bed, still disturbed by that story of the Basel Cathedral. I climbed into bed, and I was about to lay down and go to sleep when I thought, why have I fallen asleep in my dreams? In my dreams, I will dream that thought. I thought, I must think this through. I must give it clear thinking. So I thought, what is this all about? It is about God. God in heaven. God is omnipotent. God gives us our thoughts. Then perhaps God means me to think this story through. The very thing that I think is terrible, maybe I am meant to think it. And so, having made that decision, I walked over to the bedroom window. I remember standing at the window and looking out. 25 feet down, 25 feet to eternal damnation, and then up to the heavens, to God. I remember thinking, well, I must do it. And so I allowed the story to recreate in my imagination. I saw the cathedral square. I saw the clear blue sky. I saw the throne of God in heaven, and the sun shining off the throne onto the Basel Cathedral roof. And then it came to me. I looked back up to the throne of God, and there, from under the throne of God, there came a great brown turd. It came tumbling down and hit the cathedral roof and smashed it into pieces. Well, when I allowed that thought to come to me, it was not eternal damnation that I experienced. Bah, it was just the opposite. It was grace, a sense of relief, of elation. And I knew that I had done the right thing.